Hi, my name is Deanne Colley. I want to do a video for my clients and potential clients on an inventory listing in a divorce. Many times people ask me, am I entitled to this? Can I get half the house value? What about half the car value? Well, it is almost impossible to look at one asset of a marriage unless you only have one asset. You have to look at all of the property and debts in order to give some advice on what you might be entitled to, or whether you can get half of the house value or things of that nature. So what we call that in family law is an inventory and appraisement. It's a listing of your properties and values and debts, not just the property in your possession, like if you drive a certain car. It's everything that is owned or you or your spouse have any ownership in. I will give you, if you're a client, an instruction page, and then a list of documents to provide, and an example of what an inventory looks like, and a final sheet, which is just sort of a sheet of various types of assets and liabilities, just to jog that memory to make sure we haven't missed anything. So when we finish with an inventory, mine typically look like spreadsheets. There's a lot of information that needs to go on the inventory for every asset and for every liability. In addition to you listing out the detail, I need backup documentation for everything. The purpose of this is to identify and value all of the community assets, all of the separate property assets, as well as all of the liabilities, so that we can make a listing of every single thing and who that thing is going to be awarded to with certain values. And this is a project, so it will take a good while to complete. Okay, the listing is it needs to contain a listing of your real property. If you own a house, I need the address. I need a deed. I need is there still a debt? Who is the mortgage company? What is the payoff? What is the current value of the home? Where are you getting these values? If your local appraisal district has it valued at a certain amount and you agree with that value, print off or save over that appraisal district page. And when you make this listing for me and you say, I live on such and such street and this is my house, and I think it's worth this certain amount, what I'm giving you to prove that amount, see attached appraisal district. Or I recently had an appraisal. We refinanced a year ago and it's still worth the same. So basically, it's important to list all of your real property, land, houses, even if it's land that you inherited or that you owned prior to marriage. It's important to list all of your vacation property, all of your vehicles, motorcycles in this part of town, trailers, cattle, boats. Also, if you have an interest in a company, that gets a little crazy because it depends on what the entity is. However, I also ask that you give me detail on that company and what's involved in that company, the assets, things of that nature. Insurance policies, term life insurance or whole life insurance, your debts, retirement accounts, bank accounts. Very detailed information. And if you rolled over an IRA from your prior employment from before you were married, I need to know that it was yours from before. We'll get to that in a minute. Now, as far as furniture and furnishings and things in the house, I typically don't get my clients to go through and list a dresser or 10 wash rags or 30 towels. Some do, because that is their property we're looking at dividing, is only the contents of maybe a house you're renting, and that's fine. But if not, then typically people lump together categories. For example, kitchen items could be your plates and napkins, forks, cutlery, things like that, pots and pans. You can put the master bedroom furniture, which includes bed, 2 nightstands, a dresser, a chest of drawers, and you can value that all at one value. You don't have to have the dresser at a value and the something, the nightstands at a value. You can do that for every room. That's a good way to do it. Now, if you have a lot of antiques, then you might want that to be separately listed with a value, because it's probably worth, quite a bit more. It's like an asset that stands out. Now, as far as if you have, bedroom furniture, but two of the items were your grandma's, and they, you've had for years, or you just inherited last year, but they were your grandma's. You want to list everything, but then you want to list those two things separately and explain that they were inherited from your grandma last year, or that you owned them prior to marriage. Make sure and separate out what you owned prior to marriage. Let's talk about that. The goal in this is to list the community property so we can tell how it's going to be divided. Well, in doing that, we're going to have to address separate property, mixed property, things like that. Community property is literally everything you have. You have to prove if something is your separate property. Something that is your separate property, or things that are your separate property, or anything you owned prior to marriage, anything that you've inherited, or anything that's been given to you as a gift, even from your spouse. So if your spouse gave you this lovely necklace that's worth thousands of dollars, that's your separate property. So you would list the whatever necklace, gift from spouse, and I like to put Christmas 2000, if you remember, because sometimes spouses forget that they made those gifts during the marriage. The other thing is, we need backup statements. If you, again, going back to the retirement account, we need to get a statement of the account at the time of your marriage. If you've continued to work at a company, if you worked at a company prior to marriage and then you've continued to work at that company, well, part of it's separate property and part of it's community. So we need a current statement, but we need a statement back from the date of marriage as well. And so when you're making these lists for me, and you're listing the property and the value, make sure and put notes, like the necklace, or I worked at this company for 5 years before we were married, or I only worked at this company prior to marriage. I had a client who inherited a sum of money from his great grandpa or something, and put in a separate account and only took a couple of thousand out. Well, that account was never touched. So he made a note on there that these funds were funds that he inherited from his great grandfather, and he was actually even able to provide me with a check payable from the estate to him, and so we could show that. That is the backup that we need. The important part also is putting values. I have clients all the time that list that they drive a 2016 Suburban, but don't give me values. They don't give me debts. They don't give me the value, the payoffs. Some of it you can't get. If it's a vehicle you drive and it's only in your spouse's name and you can't call, they won't give you the payoff. You can get me the last thing you can get your hands on, but you're just going to make note. We owe, I think, GMC, and I think it's around $12,000. Here's the last statement I can get my hands on, which was from last year. You need to provide backup. So again, the statements that show the values. For cars, you may go to NADA.com. For antique pieces or things that are different, tractors, trailers, you may look at Facebook for sale. You may look at different online sites to find something similar. And if you find those things, I pulled 3 examples of trailers that are very similar. Screenshot those, print those off so that we have that, so that we know that that's what you're basing your value on. Do not ask your spouse to help you with this. They are looking out for their best interest. We need to look out for yours. So you do as much as you can. If you need to contact friends, contact trusted friends. And again, make sure you get this inventory packet from me with the instruction sheet, the list of documents, the sample inventory listing so you can see what's going to go on it, and then your just brainstorm of listing of potential property. And I look forward to dissecting your property and getting you what you're entitled to in this divorce. The only way we can do that, though, is for you to provide the information. I cannot stress enough how important it is for you to be organized. Please don't bring me a stack of pages. Please don't bring me your deed one day and your car information the next. Please gather these documents somewhere safe. Please, put labels on them. This is the 2016 Suburban. And you have your NADA that you've printed, and you have your debt statement on there. Again, you're also going to pull debts, whether they're in your name and your spouse's name. You're going to note whose names these things are in. This is all set out on here. This is very important for you to do, and for you to spend the time, so that it will save you attorney's fees and time. And we are able to have a full and complete listing of property, and we can get educated on what is community subject to division and what is not. Because if something is your separate property, we may need some additional documents. We will have to get with you on that. So make sure and make notes and get those to us in a timely manner. I look forward to working with you. Again, my name is Deanne Colley. If you have questions, our phone number is 903-572-7712. And my email address is d@colleyattorneys.com. That's just the letter D at COLLEYATTORNEYS.com. Thank you.